ඇත්ත කෙටියෙන් දත්ත වැඩියෙන් සයිබර් අවකාශයේ කලබන වුවත් සලකුණ News First YouTube channelය අදම subscribe කරන්න. News First ජනතාව සමග.
Good evening and welcome. This is News First, where the people come first. For the News First team, I am Azra Hassan. Let's start off with a look at headlines for tonight.
Parliament will elect new president on the 20th of July. Prime Minister explains his stance.
ව්‍යවස්ථාවෙන් පිට අපි ක්‍රියා කරන්නට යන්නේ නැහැ. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවටත් බල කරන්න බෑ. පිටින් ඉඳගෙන මේ වැඩ කරන්න කියලා. මම ඉන්නේ මෙතන ව්‍යවස්ථාව ආරක්ෂා කරන්න.
STF SSP interdicted for attacking journalists. Prime Minister's security chief still at large. SJB parliamentary group to nominate Sajith Premadasa for interim presidency.
විපක්ෂය අපි සූදානම් රට ස්ථාවර කිරීම රටේ ආර්ථිකයේ ගොඩනැගීම වැඩපිළිවෙළ නායකත්වය ලබා දෙන්න.
Janata Vimukti Peramana is willing to take up the responsibility.
මේ ජනාධිපතිවරයා පළව හරින කලින්ම අපි කිව්වා. ඒක කිසිසේත්ම වෙනස් කළා නැහැ. අපි සූදානම්.
Litro back in the market with 50 rupee price hike. Kanchana explains fuel shipments and more scuffles at fuel queues.
Main sponsor.
Earn a highest interest rate of 21% for 4 months fixed deposits. LB Yasaisuru.
Leaders met in Parliament to discuss the appointment of an interim president after the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on Wednesday. But no definite views were expressed regarding the resignation of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe during this meeting.
The party leaders' meeting, which began today at 2:30 p.m. under the chairmanship of Speaker Mahinda Yapabewardena, continued until 4 p.m. The Prime Minister, Opposition Leader, the Chief Opposition Whip and more than 35 party leaders represented in Parliament participated in the meeting today. The Sri Lankan Parliament's Speaker announced the decisions that were reached at Monday's meeting between the party leaders. He said the objective of the meeting was to decide on the future steps that needed to be taken following the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who has informed the Speaker that he will step down on Wednesday, the 13th of July. Therefore, Parliament will convene on the 15th of July as per the Act, and the House will be informed of the vacant presidency. Thereafter, on the 19th of July, nominations will be called for, and on the 20th of July, as per the existing legal provisions, a vote will be called for to elect the new president. If a president is resigning, then Parliament must be convened within 3 days from the date of resignation. The date is set for this Friday, the 15th. Parliament is to convene and elect an interim president. We are to call for nominations next Monday, and the election within Parliament will need to take place within 2 days from then. The election within Parliament for an interim president is also set to happen next Wednesday. The country will have a new interim president by the 20th of July. That is what was discussed. Journalists inquired from parliamentarian Rauf Hakim regarding a possible resignation of the Prime Minister. Let him keep his position for a few more days if he likes, but I don't accept Ranil Wickremesinghe as our Prime Minister.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ කියන තැනත්තා අපේ අගමැති හැටියට. තාම නිශ්චිත නැත්නම් එතුමාගේ අදහස කියන්නේ ඉවත්වීමේ එතුමා මේ ඉවත්වීමේ කතාව කියන්නේ නැහැ.
He is not saying that he is going to resign. He said he is going to hold the seat and requested an approval from the party leaders to import fuel. We oppose that because that is not in our jurisdiction. That is why a cabinet has been appointed. If he is going to stay in power, then he must take that decision as he is a part of the executive. We suspect he is trying to carry out some fraudulent deal at our expense during his last hour. The party leaders weren't called here to discuss about fuel imports. The situation was tense during the meeting. We demanded for an all-party government and we requested to implement that in a democratic and peaceful manner. Parliamentarians from both the ruling party and the opposition are doing all we can to form an all-party government. We hope to receive a positive answer within the next 24 hours.
The President's office said that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa will only communicate through the Speaker. The statement said that announcements made by the Speaker alone must be considered as official statements from the President.
Several ministers had met at the Prime Minister's office for talks this morning.
After the meeting, the Prime Minister's media division said all the ministers who participated in the discussion were of the opinion that as soon as there is an agreement to form an all-party government, they are ready to hand over their responsibilities to that government. We will resign to make way for the all-party government that is to be formed. We will support the all-party government as well. We cannot officially convene the cabinet as well. This discussion was something that we volunteered to take part in without the president because we don't have a way to gather officially. There is no one to hand over the letter to. I have a proposal to form an advisory committee with the groups of the people behind this meeting. Under the Independent Commission clause, we can use the legality to form such a committee. Therefore, I propose that if the all-party government truly respects the views of the protesters and the people, legally we can explore that option. Meanwhile, the SJB parliamentary team came to a consensus to propose Sajith Premadasa as the successor to the president. General Secretary of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Ranjit Manduba Bandara, has brought forward the proposal. Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca seconded the motion.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa says the Samagi Jana Balawegaya is ready to lead Sri Lanka into economic prosperity.
The
reign of the President, Prime Minister and the Pohottua is over. They have completely destroyed Mother Lanka. We are ready to lead and rebuild this nation. We are ready to form our government. There is no other alternative. If someone is against this, then we will consider that as an act of treason. We are ready to secure and lead our nation, to rebuild the Sri Lankan economy.
අපි සූදානම් මාතෘභූමිය රැක ගන්න. මාතෘභූමියට නායකත්වය ලබා දෙන්න. රටේ ආර්ථිකය ගොඩනගන්න. මව්බිමට ජය වේවා. ජනතාවට ජය වේවා. අරගලයට ජය වේවා.
The leader of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, Anura Kumara Desanayaka, says the JVP is ready to take up the responsibility to take this country forward.
The Janata Vimukti Peramuna called on the 43rd Brigade led by parliamentarian Patali Champikaranaka earlier today. After the meeting, leader of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna Andra Kumar Desanayaka told media that an election must be held as soon as possible and the JVP is fully capable of leading this country forward.
ඒ මොකද අපි මේ කිසිවක් බියකලුකමින් දාලා යන සූදානම් මිනිස්සු නෙවෙයි මේ වගකීම් බාර ගන්න සූදානම්.
Yes, we are, because we are not cowards that run away in the face of adversity. We are ready to take responsibility. We know that there are only 3 MPs representing the JVP in Parliament. Anyone can make the Parliament their sock puppet if we continue to have these redundant laws governing this country. The JVP is ready and fully capable of leading this country in the right direction if given the opportunity. We said this even before President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was chased away. Our stance hasn't changed. We are prepared to do what is necessary. We must establish a just government that operates according to the people's mandate. We must dissolve this existing parliament that doesn't represent the will of the people. The only question is, how long is that going to take? We must agree on a date and expedite the process. We are prepared to do whatever that is needed of us during that time period as well. But we should not have to give power to a new president or prime minister during that time, because we shouldn't play political games making corrupt deals at this crucial time. We must act according to the people's mandate. This is what is demanded by the people upon the hour of need. Stop playing with the lives of our people. Both Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe must go home. That is what the people are demanding. They must resign immediately.
මේ හඬ මේ විරෝධය නේද රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහත් කේන්ද්‍ර කරගෙන ගොඩනැගෙන ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ රනිල් ප්‍රමුඛ ආණ්ඩුව. එනිසා වුන් වහාම ඉවත් විය යුතුයි.
අන්තර්වාර පාලනයක් යටතේ ප්‍රධාන තනතුරක් අරගන්න සූදානම් ඊට පස්සේ බර කරට ගන්න පුළුවන් කියන කතාවද ඔබතුමා කිව්වේ?
ඒකටත් ලෑස්ති. ඒ ඕනම විව්වේ.
දැන් ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා ඉවත් වීම ප්‍රකාශ කළා.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has announced that he will resign. Based on what he has informed the speaker, he will resign on Wednesday. If not, the Aragale will move forward. From the side of the people, from the parliament and from every nook and corner of the country, we have to acknowledge one thing: the Rajapaksa reign is over. They do not have the blessings of the Sri Lankan public anymore. They cannot hold on to their reign anymore. But that doesn't mean any other party can take matters into their own hands.
ව්‍යවස්ථාවෙන් පිට කටයුතු කිරීමේ අයිතියක් නැහැ.
News First with the people.
Main sponsor.
Earn a highest interest rate of 21% for 4 months fixed deposits. LB Yasaisuru.
Introducing EVA Heavy Flow Wings with an extended length of 280 millimeters to provide extra protection on days you need it most. And for the first time in Sri Lanka, an antibacterial layer to minimize microbial growth. EVA, leading with confidence.
For months now, Sri Lankans have been waiting in long queues to access fuel, cooking gas and other essentials. There's a new queue snaking its way to the President's house, where Sri Lankans are getting the opportunity to see what was inside the most protected residence in the country.
The President's house, which was breached and occupied following Saturday's mass protests, has now been opened to the public. It is noticeable that Gotagogama activists are leading efforts to protect the President's house.
The
Aragale boys deserve victory upon victory because neither our children nor our grandchildren nor our generation will ever get the opportunity to see something like this. We see now that one family worked so hard to protect themselves and secure these luxuries. How much we suffer to eat just a piece of bread.
The
character that is Gotabaya Rajapaksa must exit Sri Lanka and leave to America. That is our only hope. Swaths of people are still continuing to flock to temple trees. Even today, large crowds of people were seen visiting the premises. A group had taken steps to provide food for those visiting temple trees. The Occupy Galle-Face protest site, commonly known as Gotagogama, is still buzzing with people for the 94th consecutive day. Large crowds were seen in and around the premises of the President's house as well.
News First with the people.
We will be back after this short commercial break. Stay with News First.
Enjoy highest return for your investments from LB Finance right now. Earn a highest interest rate of 21% for 4 months fixed deposits. LB Yasaisuru, an unparalleled reward for a trusted deposit.
Welcome back to the news. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, in a statement said that he continues to follow developments in Sri Lanka closely.
It adds that he stands in solidarity with the Sri Lankan people and calls on all stakeholders to engage in dialogue to ensure a smooth transition of government and to find sustainable solutions to the economic crisis. The Secretary General condemns all acts of violence and calls for those responsible to be held accountable, underlining the paramount importance of maintaining the peace.
Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken urged Sri Lanka's leaders to quickly find long-term solutions to the nation's economic and political crisis.
This is something that we're closely following. We're looking at the political developments. We've seen now thousands of people of all backgrounds taking to the streets, looking for accountability, looking for transparency, looking for a better future. I would note that the Prime Minister announced that he will step down when all parties agree to form a new government. We've also seen reports from the Sri Lankan Parliament, the Speaker, who said the President intends to step down on July 13th. We're tracking all of that. By the way, we would urge the Sri Lankan Parliament to approach this with a commitment to the betterment of the country, not any one political party.
The Indian High Commission in Colombo had categorically denied speculative reports in sections of media and social media about India sending her troops to Sri Lanka.
The High Commission tweeted, "These reports and such reviews are also not in keeping with the position of the Government of India." The Indian High Commission in Colombo also tweeted, "The spokesperson of Ministry of External Affairs of India clearly stated that India stands with the people of Sri Lanka as they seek to realize their aspirations for prosperity and progress through democratic means and values, established institutions and constitutional framework." The Indian Ministry of External Affairs official spokesperson said, quote, "India is Sri Lanka's closest neighbor and our two countries share deep civilizational bonds," end quote. Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar yesterday said the Indian government has always been supportive of Sri Lanka and it was trying to help the neighboring country through its present economic crisis and made it clear that there was no refugee crisis right now. Speaking to reporters outside the Tiruvananthapuram airport after arriving in the state capital on a 3-day visit, Jaishankar said, quote unquote, "We have been very supportive of Sri Lanka. We are trying to help and we are always very helpful where they are concerned."
Adding more weight to the rising cost of living in the country, Litrogas has increased the maximum retail price of a 12.5 kilogram domestic cooking gas cylinder by 50 rupees to 4,910 rupees. Litro will begin LP gas distribution for the first time in a month today.
The shipment of 3,700 metric tons of LP gas that was ordered using the funds of the World Bank and Litrogas reached the island yesterday, and the process of distributing the gas commenced today. I would like to inform the people not to pay a cent more. A gas cylinder in Colombo costs 4,910 rupees. We have 33,000 tons of gas until the 31st. The order of 100,000 tons of gas under the initial agreement is available until the end of October. We will refill the 4 million empty gas cylinders we have in our possession. Litro said that the electricity bill for May 2022 must be produced at a time of purchase to prevent unnecessary hoarding. Litro said that purchase locations of LP gas will be communicated via its social media and web platforms. Litro also said that distribution of LP gas will be conducted with the support of police and the special task force.
Lengthy queues opposite filling stations across the island are now a common sight. However, earlier today, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara announced a timeline of fuel shipments that are scheduled to arrive in the country this month.
According to Minister Kanchana Wijesekara, payments have been made to the diesel shipment scheduled to arrive between the 15th and 17th of this month, as well as a shipment of petrol scheduled to arrive between the 22nd and 24th. In a tweet, the minister said a tanker carrying diesel for which an advance payment was made last week will arrive in the country between the 15th and 17th of July, while another petrol shipment will arrive between the 17th and 19th of July as well. He added the full payment had been made for the shipment of diesel. The tweet further reads, 3 more vessels carrying diesel, crude oil and heavy fuel oil will arrive in the island over the next few days, with payments to be made upon arrival in Colombo. While the minister tweeted details of impending fuel shipments, citizens across many parts of the country queued up to purchase fuel, even today. A heated argument broke out at the IOC filling station in Nochagama, Anuradhapura today, when attempts were made to pump fuel for those engaged in essential services. Police took steps to issue fuel to a father who was on his way for his own child's autopsy. Another lengthy queue was witnessed opposite the IOC filling station in Colombo. Our cameras captured the response of the people when a group of policemen attempted to pump fuel to their vehicles.
Public passenger transport services have been badly affected by the fuel crisis in Sri Lanka. Everywhere you go, you see people standing in roads waiting to find some sort of transportation to get to their destination. Now, the footage that you're about to witness is a good example of it. It shows how Sri Lankans are clinging on to dear life to get from point A to point B.
Sri Lanka's public transport services have never been the same ever since the country started running out of fuel stocks.
Hundreds of people in China's Henan province attended a banking protest yesterday, which turned violent after a clash with a group of unidentified men.
Protesters said the banks had frozen their deposits because of supposed upgrades of their internal systems, but had not been in communication since. Some 39 billion yuan, which is $5.8 billion US, is believed to have been frozen, leaving hundreds of thousands affected. Authorities later said they would announce a plan to address the issue. The incident involving the 4 banks had been in the spotlight earlier last month, as some bank customers had earlier claimed authorities had restricted their movements in a bid to stop them from protesting. Yesterday, protesters held banners and chanted while sitting on the steps of the Chinese Central Bank in Zhengzhou, the capital of Henan. Local media reports say police were present at the scene and had told protesters to leave. Shortly afterwards, protesters were then approached by a group of unidentified men believed to be security personnel but dressed in plain clothes.
In some sports news, Australia has collapsed on day 4 of the second test against Sri Lanka, capitulating to an emphatic innings and 39-run defeat.
On a horror
series.
Gota Gogama at Golface has been active since the 9th of April, and on the 9th of July, Sri Lankans breached the President's house and office. And until their demands are met, Sri Lankans continue to occupy Golface as the protests continue. The Bhikkhu organization's collective called on the Mahanayaka Theros today.
Convener of the Bhikkhu organization's collective, Venerable Ulapane Sumangala Thera, called on the Mahanayaka Theras of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters of the Siam sect today and expressed that Basil Rajapaksa is involved in a concerted effort to bring to power a group that he can command. The Venerable Thera first travelled to the Askiriya Mahaviharaya.
එයාට ඕන අගමැති කෙනෙක් පත් කර ගැනීම උත්සාහයක තමයි ඉන්නේ. හරිම කනගාටුදායක රටක් විනාශ කරලා තවත් මේක අතහැරලා දාන්න යන්නේ නැතුව තියෙන එක. ඒකට විරුද්ධව තමයි දැන් ජනමතයකට ජනගණන ඡන්ද ලියන්නත් බැරි කියන ආයතන දුන්නා වගේ සර්වපාක්ෂික ආණ්ඩුවක් හදලා යන්න ඕනේ. ඒකටත් බැසිල් තමයි දැන් මැදිහත් වෙලා අරකට අරයා මේකට. එයා තමයි අරයා මේක කරන්න ඕනේ. මෙයා මේක අගමැතිට මෙයා දාන්න ඕනේ. මේ මෙහෙම වෙන්න ඕනේ කීකිය. දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ ජනමතයක් නැහැ මහානායකයන්. නෑ ඒක මහානායක මුළු ලෝකෙම මුළු ලංකාවම ප්‍රවාහණය නැති වෙලාවේ ලක්ෂ ගාණක් කොළඹ මහානායක ටීවී වල පෙන්නුවේ නැත්තරම් සෙනගත් පෙන්නුවේ නැති ප්‍රමාණය ගොඩයි. මේසි පොදියවා මිනිස්සු වේදනාවක් විඳින්නේ. තවත් මේ මිනිස්සු මහානායකයන් අත්හැරලා යන්නේ නැති එක තමයි තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ. මහානායකයන් අත්හැරලා සම්පූර්ණ විනාශය කරේ බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහානායකයන්. ඊයින් ඉඳලා ඉතුරු ටිකක් විනාශ කරනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ට පුරවැසිභාවයක් තියෙනවා රටකට යන්න. මේ අපේ අහිංසක මිනිස්සු කොහෙද යන්නේ මහානායකයන්? ඒකේ තමයි උකාන්තරෝන වැඩ කරන්නේ. රටට මේක කිව්වා ගියේ නෑ බලන්න. ගියේ නෑ මහානායකයන්. දැන් ගිහිල්ලා ඇත්තකට වෙලා ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඕන කිනාව දාගෙන ආයෙත් මේක තාල්ලෑල ඉත්තු වදිනවා වගේ ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඕන වැඩේ තමයි කරන්න හදන්නේ.
Subsequently, Venerable Ulapane Sumangala Thera expressed similar sentiments while calling on the Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter of the Siam sect.
මහානායකයන් මුලින් කැමති වෙන්නේ ජනාධිපතිතුමාට 69 ලක්ෂයක් මේවා කරනවා කියලා කියපු එක. ඒක කරන්නේ නැතුව අපිට 69 ලක්ෂ තියෙනවායි කියලා. විකාර දේවල් ඉවගේ මහානායකයන් කියනවා ඇසිල් රාජපක්ෂටත් ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ.
We wish to warn the group of thieves, including Basil Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was appointed through the back door and is aiming for presidency. Remember, what you witnessed on the 9th was a storm, but on the 13th, we will bring a tsunami.
මේ තීරණයෙන් පස්සේ සුනාමියක් පැමිණීමට නියමිතයි.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe made a special statement today, highlighting the events that transpired on the 9th of July.
මිනිස්සු විඳින දුක මම දන්නවා. ඒකට මම සමාව ඉල්ලක් තියෙනවා.
I understand the suffering of the people and I have apologized for that, but we need to come together to move forward. In such a situation, I postponed several meetings scheduled for Saturday, the 9th of July, the day of the Aragalaya. By evening, the Sri Lanka police made a request from me to leave the premises as those attending the Aragalaya would pass my residence on their way back and would make remarks. Thereafter, my wife and I left the premises. It was at that time my house was torched. It was my only home. My greatest treasure was my library. There were 2,500 books. The books penned by Reverend Queries during the Portuguese era were in the library. There were books dating back to 300 to 400 years about the Dutch era, penned by the late Boldiers. Some books were autographed by people like Kissinger. I cannot have them with me forever. That is why my three and I decided to donate these books to the libraries of Royal College, to the University of Peradeniya and other institutions on international affairs. I also had paintings with me, with some dating back to 200 years ago, and even to the era when the British arrived here. Today only one painting depicting King Vimaladarmasuriya meeting the Dutch ambassador survived. All other paintings were destroyed. I was in possession of the Tripitaka and books on Buddhism. None of those books were spared. I had valuable Buddhist images to be gifted, and only one survived. Even the paintings by present-day artists were destroyed. People with a mindset like Hitler are the ones who set houses on fire. There is a background to this. At 4 p.m. on that day, there was a party leaders meeting and I joined via Zoom from where I was at the time. Several proposals for future programs were put forward, including those relating to the resignation of the president. Everyone agreed that the president must resign. There were proposals for a new system and a new government. The opposition proposed that the president and prime minister must resign and the speaker should take up the post in the interim and thereafter form a government. The parties in government remained silent and said that they will inform their decision later. But I said that would cause a delay and I disagreed. I also made the opposition's proposal for the president to resign, and then when an all-party government is formed, I am willing to step down from the post of prime minister. When an all-party government is formed, they can decide who will become president. There was a debate and I explained my position. There is a great deal of work to be done during these 2 weeks, especially with the IMF. We need to access fuel and food. If those fail, we will not get the opportunity again and everything will be delayed.
ට්වීට් එකක් ගිහින් තියෙනවා රව් ෆකින් ඇමතුමාගේ මම මේකට විරුද්ධ වුණා කියලා. ඒ වගේම එවලේ අපේ සුමන්දිරන් මන්තුමා කිව්වා ඇයි මම මේ තනතුරෙන් ඉවත් වෙන්න අකමැති කියලා.
Before all this was complete, a tweet was relieved by Rauf Hakim saying I disagreed with the proposal. At the same time, parliamentarian Sumantiran questioned why I will not step down. I said I am willing to do so after creating a new government. I spoke to him and he said that he did not release it. However, this one tweet had gone to Sirasa. It was given publicity and the other media organizations also gave publicity. I made a special statement that I am willing to hand over power to an all-party government and that I proposed it. That was carried by the other media. That was the end of it. But Sirasa carried on with it and distorted it. I sent a second and third statement. I even spoke to their head 3 times and asked not to do this and warned that my house could be torched. But they continued. One group came and then police fired tear gas at them. Then another group came and police fired tear gas again. At the time, one Sirasa journalist fell down and they alleged that he was beaten. I apologized for that. If such an incident took place, they should have informed the police about the officer in question and called for an inquiry. But information was sent out calling others to the site. They even showed the road and said that they have legal advice and police cannot stop them. When the group arrived, the police used a baton charge and fired tear gas and did not resort to opening fire, even though it was the last option. They came in and set fire to the house. The documents from the president's house, temple trees, president's office were taken and destroyed. A government must act abiding by the law and must not operate away from the constitution. Parliament too cannot be forced to work externally. I am here to protect the constitution and then listen to the mandate of the people. We need an all-party government. That is my statement on the Saturday events.
අර්ධපාක්ෂික ආණ්ඩුවක් ඒක ඇති කරන්නත් ක්‍රියා කරන්න. ඒ නිසා සෙනසුරාදා සිද්ධිය ගැන මම මේ සම්පූර්ණ ප්‍රකාශය කරනවා.
Prime Minister Wickremesinghe, your accusation is that Newsfirst distorted your statement made about the party leaders meeting on the 9th of July. Well, let's take a look at what actually happened, shall we? During our breaking news coverage on the 9th of July, your media division released not one or two, but 3 statements on 3 separate occasions with reference to what you said at the party leaders' meeting. Moments after releasing the first statement, your media division made a clarification. And right after that, an audio recording from you was released as well. This is how all 3 statements were telecast during our breaking news broadcast, which was already on air at the time. This is the Prime Minister's first statement.
අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය මාධ්‍යකයේ විශේෂ නිවේදනයක් නිකුත් කර තිබෙනවා. අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය දුරෙන් ඉල්ලා අස්වී සර්වපාක්ෂික රජයකට බලය ලබා දීමට තමන් සූදානම් බව අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා පක්ෂ නායකයින්ට ප්‍රකාශ කර ඇති බව තමයි අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය මාධ්‍යකයේ නිවේදනය කරන්නේ. ඔවුන් සඳහන් කරනවා දීප ව්‍යාප්ත ඉන්ධන බෙදා හැරීම මේ සතියේදී යලි ආරම්භ කිරීමට නියමිත බවත්, ලෝක ආහාර වැඩසටහනේ අධ්‍යක්ෂවරයා මේ සතියේ දිවයිනට පැමිණීමට නියමිත බවත්, ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදලේ ණය තිරසර වාර්තාව ඉදිරිපත් කිරීමට නියමිත බවත් සැලකිලටගෙන තමන් මේ තීරණය ගන්නා බව ඔහු දැනුම් දුන් බව, එබැවින් පුරවැසියන්ගේ ආරක්ෂාව තහවුරු කිරීම සඳහා ඔහු විරුද්ධ පක්ෂ නායකින්ගේ නිර්දේශයන්ට එකඟතාව පළ කළ බව තමයි අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය මාධ්‍යකයේ විශේෂ නිවේදනයක් නිකුත් කරමින් සඳහන් කරන්නේ.
Now here's the second statement from the Prime Minister.
අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය මාධ්‍ය ඒකකය පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් කරනවා. ඔවුන් සඳහන් කරන්නේ අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතාගේ ඉවත්වීම සිදුවන්නේ සර්වපාක්ෂික ආණ්ඩුවක් පිහිටුවීමෙන් පසු බහුතරය ප්‍රකාශයට පත්වීමෙන් පසුව බවයි. එතෙක් රටේ කටයුතු ගෙන යාම සඳහා අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයා තවදුරටත් දුරේ කටයුතු කරන බව තමයි අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය මාධ්‍ය ඒකකය සඳහන් කරන්නේ. පක්ෂ නායකින්ගේ රැස්වීමේදී ඔහු ඉවත්වීමට එකඟතාව පළ කර තිබෙනවා. නමුත් ඉවත් වන්නේ සර්වපාක්ෂික ආණ්ඩුවක් පිහිටුවාගෙන බහුතරය ප්‍රකාශයට පත් වූ පසු බව තමයි රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා එහිදී දැනුම් දී තිබෙන්නේ. එතෙක් සර්වපාක්ෂික ආණ්ඩුවක් පිහිටුවාගෙන බහුතරය ප්‍රකාශයට පත් වී කටයුතු බාර දෙන තෙක් රටේ කටයුතු පවත්වාගෙන යාම සඳහා අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය දුරේ වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා කටයුතු කරන බව තමයි දැනුම් දී තිබෙන්නේ. එය නිවුස් ෆස්ට් වෙත අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය මාධ්‍ය ඒකකය පැහැදිලි කළා.
And this is the third statement from the Prime Minister.
අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා විශේෂ ප්‍රකාශයක් නිකුත් කර තිබෙනවා. අපි දැන් ඒ වෙත යමු වෙනවා.
මම ජනාධිපතිතුමා යෝජනා කළේ සර්වපාක්ෂික ආණ්ඩුවක් ඇති කරන්න. අද මේ රටේ ඉන්ධන ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ආහාර හිඟයක් තියෙනවා. මේ සඳහා ආහාර වැඩසටහනේ ප්‍රධානීය ලංකාවට එනවා. IMF සංවිධානයේ සමග වැදගත් කරුණු කීපයක් සාකච්ඡා කරන්න තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මේ ආණ්ඩුව ඉවත් වුණාම වෙන ආණ්ඩුවක් එවලෙම අපි පත් කරන්න උවමනයි. රටේ ආණ්ඩු පාලනයක් නැතුව ආණ්ඩුවක් නැතුව මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ගෙනියන එක වැරද්දක්. ඉතින් මේ ආණ්ඩුව මම යලිත් කියනවා මේ ආණ්ඩුව ඉවත් වෙනකොට තව අලුත් ආණ්ඩුවක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ.
Mr. Wickramasinghe, you said we distorted your statements and didn't carry them. Sadly for you, it is quite clear that you have lied and we did carry your statements. So, Mr. Prime Minister, let's now take a look at what actually happened that evening when our journalists were brutally assaulted. On the 9th evening, information of a protest close to the Colombo residence of Ranil Wickramasinghe reached us, and a Newsfirst team was dispatched to the site to report on it. That's what news organizations do. They report. It must be said here that the Newsfirst primetime news bulletin at 7 p.m. on Sirasa TV has a viewership of millions and is the most watched primetime news bulletin in the country. Apart from this, millions were also watching our breaking news online. When the police and special task force began to brutally assault our journalists, our reporters repeatedly informed them that everything was being telecast live, but they didn't care. Now this is really important, that the police and STF attacked working journalists live on primetime news. Here's how armed police and special task force personnel assaulted Newsfirst's female journalist Sarusi Piris. Watching everything live on TV, several other reporters and staff from the newsroom in Colombo rushed to the location within minutes to help their colleagues, but were in turn also brutally attacked in the same manner by the police and the STF. SSP Romesh Lianage, who was commanding the STF that brutally attacked the unarmed journalists, has now been interdicted. However, who is this man seen in civil attire at the scene of the attack? Mr. Wickramasinghe, you know this man quite well because he is SSP Nizam Jamaldeen, the head of your personal security detail. Is it possible for this attack on Newsfirst reporters to have happened without a direct order from SSP Nizam Jamaldeen, the head of the Prime Minister's security? And neither was there any attempt by him to stop or withdraw those carrying out the attack. He just stood there, watching as STF personnel armed to the teeth in anti-riot gear brutally assaulted a 23-year-old female reporter who was pleading that they stop and was running away. Jamaldeen just watched as those under his charge mercilessly beat up a Newsfirst cameraman who fell to the ground and screamed for help. Jamaldeen watched as many more Newsfirst reporters were beaten up and rushed to hospital. While action has been taken against STF SSP Romesh Lianage, why has no action been taken against Nizam Jamaldeen, the head of the Prime Minister's security detail, who appeared to be the man in charge as Newsfirst journalists were assaulted live on the nation's most watched primetime news bulletin? Mr. Wickramasinghe, this man is the head of your security detail. His actions directly resulted in the incidents of that evening, and no action has been taken against him yet. Sri Lanka is waiting for your answer, Mr. Wickramasinghe. But just remember, there's absolute safety in the absolute truth.
And that's a wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For the Newsfirst team, I am Mazra Hassan. Thank you for watching. Take care and good night.
තට්ටු 7යි හේතු 7යි මංචි සුපර් ක්‍රීම් ක්‍රැකර් වලට සුපර් කියන්නේ නිකන් නෙවෙයි
ඉන්දිකා ඊසි hair color ඔයා මතින් මික්ස් කරන්න කොණ්ඩේ මසාජ් කරන්න නැචරල් කලර් එකක් ලබා ගන්න
ඉන්දිකා ඊසි
කොත්මලේ චීස් නැවුම් කිරි නැවුම් චීස් ඇත්ත කෙටියෙන් දත්ත වැඩියෙන් සයිබර් අවකාශයේ කලබන වුවත් සලකුණ Newsfirst YouTube channel එක අදම subscribe කරන්න Newsfirst, ජනතාව සමග